Round one, fight!
Ladies and gentlemen, ladies, adults, teenagers, adolescents, and babies, welcome to another exciting Beers of War podcast. In today's episode, we will discuss the season finale or possibly the series finale of The Mandolorian. We're also going to discuss Microsoft's displeasure with Xbox, and we're going to spend a little time just talking about whatever. Stay tuned, kids. Thank you for joining us. And again, like, subscribe. Thank you for joining us. Let's go, boys.
10-4. All right.
Pull up that article real quick.
Yeah.
Kevin's referring to, supposedly the rumor going around is Microsoft, the parent company of Xbox, is unhappy with the quality of the games over the last couple of years. Supposedly it comes down to they're just not coming out. What really kicked it off is, I guess, Hi-Fi Rush that they dropped after their developer direct in January. I guess it's not doing as well as they originally thought. One is the developers kind of ticked off that it's not generating money, but I'm like, how are you going to generate money if you're on a free platform like Game Pass? But then it goes, yeah, because I mean, unless it's kind of like Amazon Music or some of these other subscriber where they get so much per play or download of these things. So if they're getting that much per thing, so that means they're not getting enough hits. But I think what really kind of threw everybody for a loop is, and what I think maybe hurt them in the long run, I didn't even hear about that game, and all of a sudden it's like you watch the developers direct, and all of a sudden, hey, we're going to drop this game, and it's like, what is this game? I've never even heard about it. There was no trailers, nothing pushing it before, as far as I know. And I think that killed interest.
No hype.
Go ahead.
I was just saying there's no hype, you know?
I'll be honest with you. Microsoft is not the only person disappointed with the lack of releases on the Series X consoles and the Series S consoles. I am supremely disappointed with both of with Microsoft and Sony. Nintendo, keep doing what you're doing. Great job, guys. But Microsoft and Sony's had some things that have really popped off. Of course, they had the Horizon game, and then they had a couple of really strong PS4 games leading into the launch of the PS5, like Ghost of Tsushima, and then they had the Final Fantasy remakes. And then I think the Last of Us TV series has really driven a lot of PlayStation sales, because PlayStation has done really well the last couple of quarters in terms of console sales. Now, Microsoft, on the other hand, I'm playing through Xbox, and I'm thinking there's Forza Horizon, there's Flight Simulator, there was the Halo game, which was mid-tier, to be honest, and then everything else isn't first party. Elden Ring's not a first party game. It's a beautiful game, but it's not a first party game. And any of the other games, which, I mean, you can blame COVID, you can blame the resulting 2-year-long delay, but there really isn't a reason to go out and say, if you're choosing between first party games for Microsoft and Sony, there is no question. It's Sony. Sony's come out with first party games. They've been quality first party games. And even the ones that maybe aren't first quality, premium quality first party games, like maybe Forspoken or something like that, still a beautiful game. And still the only place you can play it is PlayStation. So, I mean, Microsoft really hasn't stepped their game up. Apparently, they're supposed to. What's the game? What's the big one? Starfield. Starfield was supposed to release at some point later this year, after it was supposed to re-released later last year. But I mean, Microsoft really hasn't stepped their game up. This is looking bad as we enter into what will be the last 2.5, 3 years, possibly, of this console cycle.
I was thinking was after reading that article, kind of thinking about it. How much is the lack of Xbox exclusive games is due to the fact of a combination that Xbox went out and bought all these publishers, and then everything got shut down because of COVID. So a lot of places weren't working, and because when you own that many from a top tier, as either Xbox or Microsoft decision says, "Hey, COVID's here, shut everything down. Everybody work from home. You got limited working capacity at home compared to your system you got at work." How much has that overall affected the fact that they're so far behind on releasing games is because owning everybody, so the parent company shut everything down, COVID came in, shut everything down, and now they're playing catch up halfway, almost 2/3 of the way through a console generation.
That's a good question.
You may say that's maybe what Microsoft did, but there are still, games still released during the COVID. I mean, you're talking about your Maddens and your annual games, Madden, Call of Duty, the recycle games, the rinse, lather, repeat games. All of those came out. And right now, when I turn my Xbox on, I'm playing Medieval Dynasty, which is a game that has Xbox 360 graphics, possibly. And The Show, which was built by Santa Monica Studios, that's owned by Sony. Those are the only two reasons I turn my Xbox on right now. So that's a valid question, but it's one of those things where maybe everybody else kind of persevered and pushed through it. So I wonder why maybe some of these studios, the one that's supposed to come out with Senua's Sacrifice, it looks beautiful. It looks fantastic. But is it going to be is it going to be a console seller, especially if it's on Game Pass?
That's the thing going around right now is eventually down the road, if some of these bigger publishers and stuff put their games day one release on Game Pass, is it going to change eventually when they realize they're not making their return on their investment? I mean, are we going to start seeing a drop off in quality of day one releases and stuff coming to Game? Maybe not day one, but 6-month release on the Game Pass. That way some people go out and buy it. Because I know, like, I play the Formula One games every year. And I know about 1 to 2 weeks before the first race of every season in March, the latest edition comes to Game Pass. I don't have to go buy it. Why would I want to go buy it if I could just wait till the new season starts to go download it anyway and get it for free? So, and then I don't invest any money in the games because I don't go buy any of the card packs or pay to win type stuff. I just play the game how it is and enjoy it how it is. I'm not super competitive, so I don't need any of that stuff So I think in the long run, yeah, it's nice for us gamers because Game Pass, and I don't know, I'm not too familiar what the Sony version of it is, but as us gamers, I like the fact it's free, but as a publisher and a developer, you're not making the money on your, because some of these games, how many millions of dollars do these people invest in some of these games? And
it's movie level investment.
It's what?
It's movie level investment.
Yeah. And if you're not getting your money back, how do you stay afloat?
Good question.
Especially
I think
games
there's
like
probably going to be. Sorry, go ahead.
Tim.
I think there's going to be a revision done for Game Pass at some point because I think they were banking on people playing the game and then wanting to add it to their collections because you can still purchase it from the Game Pass and everything. And I think eventually Game Pass is going to limit the length of how long the game's going to be on there just so they maybe can strike up an extra deal with making extra money off that, plus the developers getting their cut and everything. I mean, that's a possibility. I'm not saying it's going to happen or anything, but I could see them doing something like that because I think there's going to be some revisions made with Game Pass that way. In my case, it kind of shouts out to an audience to my taste because if I play the game on Game Pass and I enjoy it, I'm going to add it to my collection, So that's one of the things I'm going to do when it comes to that. But yeah, I mean, I can kind of see why it would hurt for the developers and everything. Who knows? That may explain why some of them increase the prices of their games. I mean, we just don't really know. Microsoft really knows, And as far as like as the games coming out and everything, I mean, we kind of touched based on this before in the past and whatnot. It is kind of I don't know, man. It's kind of like I waited to get the Series X. I waited and I kept trying to battle it and get it and everything. And don't get me wrong, I'm happy with it and whatnot, but I'm not happy. You know what I mean? Because they're still producing these games that are just not exactly what your next game, because a lot of the games that were made in the past were built for the previous console, the Xbox One or the One X and everything. And a lot of people are still getting these games that are coming out that are just pushing out 30 frames per second and everything, when our consoles are designed to do 60 frames per second, maybe even a little more. So it's going to be a real kick in the gut if they decide to like start coming out. But 2023 is supposed to be their year of exclusives and big name games and stuff like that. And I'm just going to say only time's going to tell. And maybe that'll make Microsoft happy. But, if I were in their position and everything, I'd probably be very disappointed too right now about where the Xbox going. And I could probably say the same thing for Sony and everything. Granted, they're doing very well on selling their consoles and whatnot. It is a beautiful console, and there are some of the games on there that are exclusive that I do love playing. And I'm going to continue to play it and everything. So I am enjoying the best of both worlds of the consoles and everything, but it's not exactly... I probably could have waited, especially for the Series X. I probably could have waited a little bit longer, but I, had that FOMO feeling, right? Fear of missing out. Everybody else was getting one. I wanted to get one, see what the big deal is. And I was waiting for Senua Sacrifice, Hellblade 2 to come out. I thought it was actually going to be one of the releases for the Series X and everything, and that would have really kicked it off for them, I think. But they're just so behind. Everything's getting pushed back. They want to make sure the game's polished and whatnot. I'm not sure how any developer or even the console manufacturers or anything like that at all, the companies that produce the consoles, how are you going to stay on top of that? You got another console coming out. If they're going to come out with a new PlayStation or Xbox, is it going to have the previous gen's games coming out on it? Is that what we're to be expecting from here on out? I think they need to slow down and just kind of work on those games and then have it prepared for the next year's console. So that way they can just roll it out, but I get it. Time is money. Money is time, so I don't know how they're going to work around something like that. It does kind of frustrate me a little bit and everything, because I haven't really bought a game in a while, wanting, to play that next gen thing, but I have been catching up on the backlogs and stuff like that. But like I said, only time's going to tell, and it's going to be in their court, especially with Starfield coming up and everything like that. I think they're going to be banking on that, making a big deal. Whenever we're going to get the next Elder Scrolls, I think they're looking on that as well. So who knows? We'll probably just be playing Skyrim for the next year or two again. So not that I don't mind. I love it. But.
Well, you were talking about some of the graphics. You were talking about 30 frames for some of the games are still running 30 frames per second, even on these even on these next gen consoles.
Right.
Just saw an article the other day about Redfall, and they're straight up telling you for about the first 6 months of the release of the game, you can only play on 30 frames per second.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people are hesitant to even dive in to go and get Redfall. I mean, it's got to, for it to be successful, even with the 30 frames per second, it has to end up turning around being a fun game to play, and where people overlook that for the time being. But if it comes in and it turns out to be like another Atomic Heart game, which was just, in my opinion, just garbage, then that's going to hurt. That's going to hurt Xbox in the long run. The same thing with Starfield. We've got this hype about Starfield, about how good it's going to be and how well it's going to be. It's got to live up to the expectations. I mean, Kevin, you're a Fallout fan. Remember all the expectation about Fallout 76 and what happened with that?
It's still too soon to talk about that game, Brandon. I apologize. I'm not really in an emotional state where I can discuss that game at length. Yeah, probably good. It was terrible. It was terrible. It was absolutely, unequivocally terrible. And Guys, we're talking about this, and it brings up two games or three games actually. Now that you brought out Fallout, Voldemort, that shall never be mentioned. Cyberpunk was supposed to be this just mind-blowing experience. They rushed it out. It wasn't ready. No Man's Sky. When it got loaded, everybody was thinking, "Oh my gosh, No Man's Sky is going to be a game-changing event." It is now. It wasn't when it released. It took development and time, and it took 4 or 5 years for that game to become what they originally said it was going to be. A mistake like that can kill a studio, and I think maybe some of the Game Pass stuff is almost insurance. Like, yeah, we'll make this game, we'll set it up, we'll get it ready. It won't be all the way ready. We'll send you an 88% game, and you can put it on Game Pass, and we'll take your check from you, and then over time we'll build it up into what we intended for it to be. And and another thing that got me thinking about this: when was the last time you walked into a brick and mortar store and walked out with a video game, a actual hard copy video game? That particular part of the experience is dying. I went to Best Buy just to go into Best Buy, and their game selection is slim to none. And I understand you got floor space, you got to cover. Video games are back there with the toys and the TVs, like the 32-inch TVs. That's where they keep the video games. Now, Walmart is roughly the same thing. And, GameStop, it's more about selling used games now than new games. So that part of the experience, which I think is core to what makes me love gaming, is really no more. And so I wonder how long it's going to be before that part of the experience is dead. And with it, it's going to take some gamers because they're like, I don't want to buy a digital copy. I want a physical copy I can turn around and look at, and I can have the book, and I can have all the stuff that comes along with it. But yeah, on that topic, as far as Microsoft being disappointed, I think that's some of it too. And I imagine that Sony's probably a little disappointed with that aspect too, is the games itself are physically disappearing.
Yeah, you're talking about going into the store. I don't go in to buy physical copies anymore of newer games. If I'm going shopping for a physical copy, I'm going to some secondhand store to look at PlayStation 1, PlayStation 2, 360 games, old retro games, Sega Genesis, stuff like that. If I'm going to buy, and the reason I do it this way is because both my wife plays as well. It's more cost efficient for us to do digital download, especially a game that both of us are going to play, because we only have to buy it once, and then we both got it. Versus if we had to go get a physical copy, we got to go buy 2 copies of it. And we've had that issue back in the day before downloading buying certain games. We just went and got had to go buy 2 copies of it. So yeah, for us, physical copies is outdated. I know Tim, on the other hand, he loves his physical copies. And they were just talking about it in another article I seen the other day that there was a game they're pulling off, that a digital copy game that they're pulling off, that they're pulling it completely because something to do with achievement hunters. They're exploiting an achievement on there, and they're racking up achievement points, and they're pulling that game off. So, and that's the downfall about digital copy is once you buy it digitally, if you don't have a physical copy, at any time they can pull that game and you'll never play it again. Forza 7, you can't find Forza 7 on Xbox right now.
Yeah, I said it before. I said it again. It's like, as far as that goes, when collecting physical copies, it's like they can take it away from you at any time when you're doing digital. I'm not against digital. I'm not against digital at all, but I'm not exactly, 100% for it either, because I like the fact that I can have a physical copy of a game and call it mine, whereas like, you got these other platforms like Steam, they can sell you a game, you can have it for a long time, but then when they want to get rid of it, it's gone. So what did you really buy? I can't use digital as trade-ins. And there's times where I'll go out game hunting and stuff like that, and I'll find games I already have or whatnot, or I know that I can make some money off, or I can use it as a credit in the game store. I could trade those in. I can make some money off of it. That's how I can fund my video game collection and everything, my game hunting and everything. And I find that fun and fascinating to do. I also appreciate the time and effort that goes into physical content, because especially with special editions, and occasionally I'll pick one up and everything. I love watching, reading and looking at the art that was done to it, or the little trinkets that come with it and everything. It's just something extra special that they put a lot of time into a product that they find that they hold dear to and everything. Another thing I don't understand about digital content is that they charge the same price as physical content. That doesn't make any sense to me whatsoever. They should at least bring it down 10-15 bucks or something like that. It's just, I don't know, but I mean, I've kind of prepared myself for this, because over the years, I watch other YouTubers and stuff like that, that I really enjoy watching, and they've kind of, mentioned it and everything. It's being phased out at this point, physical content and whatnot. And that's why it's kind of hard to go game hunting these days, because a lot of this stuff is just skyrocketing in price. There's like the original NES for Little Samson I've seen it go as high as up to $2,900 for sale. A simple NES cartridge game, stuff like that. It's just going up in price, and it's making it harder for collectors like me to even get it, because, well, obviously they're not making them anymore. And, if you're in the retro community or retro gaming and stuff like that, it can be very costly, So I rely on picking up physical content so I can make some money off of it and everything. And do I consider myself a reseller? Not really. I'm not that good at it. But, I try to, make a quick buck here or two just so I can fund my games and everything. And I'm going to continue to do it until there's really no way for me to do it anymore. So that's just kind of my take on it right now when it comes to that. And to kind of circle back with the Game Pass and everything, I think originally they had in mind to bring more players to the Xbox platform and everything, maybe kind of steal some PlayStation people or Nintendo people and stuff like that. And, I think that was another thing that they were trying to go for, because Xbox is kind of like, they're big. I mean, they're definitely going places. Are they number one? Not necessarily. Just because they have the biggest platform and or the fastest console that's out on the market and everything. I mean, Sony, I think, is still outselling them on console sales right now on the PS5. So I mean, it's going to be kind of exciting to see what's going to happen in the future and everything like that. But I really, truly, hopefully, honestly, hope it does not affect the experience that gamers have out there with playing with other friends and everything like that. You know what I mean? I don't want to see some kind of like dividedness over it and everything. Keep the politics out of it and everything, and just make a great game and just have it ready and make it next gen.
Well, something to ponder, Tim. Like what I just mentioned about they could pull a digital at any time and you're no longer access it. Mm-hmm. What's going to stop them in the future just to send in a system update a code that you won't be able to play the physical copy either?
I mean, they kind of try to do that. Xbox actually tried to do that when the Xbox One came out and everything. They were going to make it to the point where if you buy a physical game and you load it up into the console right there, you can't just loan that game out to somebody else so they can play it or anything like that. And that's already kind of like in the ether right now. And a lot of these games that are coming out right now, even the physical ones, a lot of them you got to play online. So they can definitely take that away too and everything. And that kind of makes the physical content, obsolete, unless you just, like collecting them, which in a way I do. But, and that's another thing that really, grinds my gears is I don't like the fact that I got to play online sometimes to play the games that I want, like with Gears, sometimes you got to play Horde mode online when I'd prefer to play it offline or something sometimes. It's just too much control. There's not a whole lot of free flow going on there. It makes me feel like I'm limited to my gaming at that point.
Yeah, I just think the way everything's going, it's like more. It's all about money when it comes down to just put plain and simple licensing, money, and long as people are getting their cut, that's going to dictate everything.
Mm-hmm.
So moving on from that, what do you guys all think about the season finale of Mandalorian season 3?
I loved it. I was really happy with this episode and the way how it ended and everything. I mean, I might get some flack for that with some of the other Star Wars fans and whatnot, but honestly, it was the direction I really wanted to see it go and everything. Now there were some couple of episodes that were kind of questionable and everything, and I moved on from it. But all in all, I was very happy with the series, and I think now they're getting a movie out of it and everything. So that's going to be really interesting to see too.
I
really enjoyed it. I know we discussed a little bit offline, a little bit. My biggest thing is I was kind of hoping they would tease a little bit of maybe Thrawn or even Ezra showing up, but because there was even a rumor going around that there was going to be like a mid-credit scene of Thrawn re-entering the galaxy and making his presence known. But overall, I thought it was a pretty good episode. I thought it was pretty good.
Let me just say this. There was a little bit of hint of Rebels in The Mandalorian. And I don't know if this is going to ruin it for you or not. I don't think it will. But do you remember the scene when they were going to light speed and Grogu?
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Then Grogu looked over and saw those.
I just finished that episode last night.
Yeah. Saw those. Well, you're going to see that in Rebels.
Yep.
So they play a role in it. So I think that was where their take was on how we can see, some of the Rebels coming back, on how they're going to make their entrance and everything. So that was kind of a big takeaway for me there once I understood it after watching Rebels.
So
one of the things I really enjoyed about this this season of The Mandalorian is you begin to see the seeds of the First Order.
Mm-hmm.
And by the time you get to episode 7, you're like, okay, where did these guys come from? Just all of a sudden, it's 11 million stormtroopers, and with all their ships and all this stuff. Where did these guys come from? They come from nowhere, literally. And there's not a lot of in-depth detail as to how these things came into being, and you start to see the seeds planted in this season of The Mandalorian. Hopefully, you'll see some more. Excuse me. Hopefully you'll see some more during the Ahsoka series, which takes place roughly that same time frame, and maybe some more if they do another season of Book of Boba Fett. I would like to see some detail into how the First Order came into being.
Yeah, I've never seen a timeline about that and I think we're still a few more years ahead of the official start of the First Order. I think we're still dealing with the remnants of the Empire. Some of them are still floating around because we're 5 years roughly five-ish years past Return of the Jedi.
By the end of The Mandalorian, I think you're getting into 8, 9 because according to lore, I'm not sure how deep this is. Din Grogu spent 2 years with Luke training in the Force.
Okay.
So it was the Mandalorian started 5 years after Return of the Jedi, the 2 years, and then possibly however long the events of seasons 1, 2, and 3 of the Mandalorian took.
But yeah, and I think we're still, like I think I said, we're still a few more years away from this. Now, an interesting fact from episode 7, the Spies episode, when Moff Gideon was inside his thing and he had all the holograms having the meeting with all the other Imperial leaders. The one, Hux, that was what's his name from the first, or the first, the new
Force Awakens.
Yeah. His that actor that actually played it is his actual brother, but the character is his dad. So, But then, and there's a rumor floating around that the Moff Gideon that we see get killed at the end was actually a clone and not actually him. So he's still theoretically out there. I think he's too big of an actor to kill off just this quick, especially especially with how little screen time we really seen him this year in this season.
He must have been an incomplete clone or something like that. Because if like spoiler alert, like he was trying to make clones with force sensitive abilities and whatnot. I don't think he had that in the fight or anything. So
no, he just had that cybernetic suit that he was using to give him like the strength and stuff like that. And now it goes back to why he was so insistent back in the day to try to get Grogu. Because he wanted to figure out how to incorporate Grogu into his clones.
Yeah.
So,
which would explain Dr. Pershing and what I forget the name of the spy, the Imperial spy that turned the dial up on him.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
but that explains kind of how she goes about recruiting Dr. Pershing.
So my question is, and this has been kind of the thing that's been stuck with me. So episode 7 was titled Spies, plural. Who was the second spy? I mean, everybody thought, kind of leaned toward it was going to be the armorer because her helmet looked very similar to Moff Gideon's helmet in terms of the spikes on top of both of the helmets. But as we watched through the series finale or season finale, we see that she still fought with the Mandalorians, and as far as we know, it did not reveal herself as being a spy. The question everybody wants to know is, and that's been the thing of some of these YouTube videos I watched, it was plural, who's the second one? Is it still going to be her? They just decided at this point not to reveal it. Because now the working theory is because of her helmet with the multiple spikes on the top, is she actually associated with Darth Maul?
That could tie into the whole Crimson Red thing, when we saw the Solo movie and whatnot. I mean, that is a possibility, I suppose, because there is kind of a gap between Rebels and that, because when you see him in Rebels, which you will, he's kind of an older man at that point. Right. There's no mention of it and everything. So, I mean, that's just spectating and whatnot. I mean, I see a lot of those articles that you see too, Brendan, and it's like sometimes I don't like reading them at all. I just want to tell people, just leave it to your imagination, to yourself, and just watch it and enjoy the show and see where it goes, but some people want to try to guess it and try to figure it out, and maybe just to have the bragging rights or whatnot, or just maybe it makes in-depth conversation for like-minded people that just want to talk about it. Maybe that's the way they have fun watching it and everything. I don't know. I personally just try to just watch it and just figure it out on my own and everything, because I think it's going to savor the moment for me even more. So that way I don't have to have those expectations of, oh yeah, somebody did say that. Oh yeah, that they were talking about Bo-Katan being the spy and whatnot, and I was like, nah, I don't know. I just want to see how it comes out myself.
I was still back at the beginning of the season. I thought she was going to turn out to be the villain. Mm-hmm. I thought she had more ulterior motives to go for power versus actually legitimately trying to reunite the tribes.
Mm-hmm.
So, but I did see something interesting the other day. I guess the people over at Star Wars Mandalorian side are mad and upset with Pedro Pascal because he focused too much time on The Last of Us, and because of that, he wasn't around much during season 3 as much as we normally would like him. Because originally they had planned he was supposed to take his helmet off at the end of season 3.
No,
because
he wasn't around.
What's that?
I said we could wait till season 4. It's not a big deal. The man's making a name for himself, especially later in life and everything. So I'm not disappointed. I enjoyed The Last of Us very much. I enjoyed his character as Joel in there, and I enjoy his voice work that he's doing with Mandalorian and everything. And we're seeing a lot more of Brendan Wayne, right? You know, John Wayne's grandson in there. So I mean, that's something to look forward to and everything. So I'm not nitpicky when it comes to something like that. I mean, I think season 4 is going to be. I'm pretty sure they're going to come out with a season 4. They kind of have to. They talked about bringing out 2 more seasons, and probably that's it. And of course, the movie and whatnot. So.
Word on the street is Dave Filoni already has season 4 pretty much drawn out. Not necessarily completed, but overall he's got his concept and how he wants to go. And the theory they've got working is that by the time they get season 4 done and released, it's going to be the kind of the halfway between now and when the movie drops. So we get a little bit of a filler because they're still talking 3-ish years before the movie can come out. I think the last I heard was 2026. So you figure in about a little over a year or so, you might get season 4 to start coming out. 12 months, 15 months, that kind of puts us right in the middle. So, but Kevin alluded to in the intro, the series finale. You want to elaborate on that?
Well, the way this ended, it really did have the feel of a series finale. It really did kind of feel like, and I don't know if I don't know what the thought process was behind this, but it really did feel the way it ended is just like, okay, y'all, the package is put together, it's finished. Din Grogu and Din Djarin have got their little place, their little joint on the outside of Navarro, and life is good. The Mandalorians have Mandalore. Life is good. Let's put a bow on this thing and let's go home. It really did feel like that. And so my first thought was, is the movie, is this it? Is the movie going to be the tie up of this story? Because he approached Carson Teva in the bar and talked about going on adventures, and I imagine that's where we're going to get a lot more of the building blocks of the First Order in either season 4 of The Mandalorian or the Mandalorian movie. Now, given Pedro Pascal's ties to the Last of Us series and the fact that there's going to be a season 2 of that, if you really wanted to tie it up right now, wouldn't be a bad idea. The ending was great. You finished it great. The only you're starting a whole new story. Might as well be a whole new series going into this if you go into season 4 of The Mandalorian. And everybody's already got all their baby Grogu stuff. Their baby Yoda stuff. You're not going to sell any more merch. You got your Disney Plus subscribers. They're not going anywhere. So from a monetary business decision, the next place you take this, you pop it on the big screen at the end of 2024, you make your $1 billion or your $1.5 billion and then close the book. And now you've got your road paved to kind of hand Star Wars over to Ahsoka and hand it over to Andor and kind of flesh out those universes. And you can be finished with The Mandalorian. I mean, that's just what it looked like to me. I don't know. I mean, what are you guys' thoughts on it?
I think it was a safe play, is what I think it was. I think maybe it was a safe play because they didn't know how the season was going to go or anything, and they can end it on a good note like that. I mean, I could be wrong about that. I mean, there could be something big happening with the movie and whatnot. So that was just my first thoughts of it. Not saying I'm right about it or anything, but yeah.
I could fall into line with that a little bit, Kevin, because normally there's always a cliffhanger.
Mm-hmm.
What is the big cliffhanger here?
There wasn't one.
I mean, other than not really a big one, but right at the end that they're at the waters and Grogu puts his hand down and he makes that force connection with the mythosaur. But other than that, there's really nothing else out there.
Yeah, you could do the whole mythosaur thing in the movie. I mean, there's no reason to drag this out for another 2-3 seasons. And what I worry about with that is if you drag it out another 2-3 seasons based off of what you started with and where it is now, you run the risk of diluting the content. Maybe. I mean, not that I would ever think Filoni and Favreau would ever like mess this up. They have done a phenomenal job resuscitating Star Wars, but this would be a perfect time to cash in your chips, make your $1 billion, and be done. Leave them wanting more, I guess you could say.
I think Filoni and Favreau, you know, they had a big task on their shoulders and everything, and they've achieved. And now Filoni's going to be directing his own Star Wars movies and stuff like that, which I'm very excited about. That I'm very happy for him and everything. The only thing I feel bad about for these guys is that they may be the ones that they're going to ask to tie in the new trilogy that came out and everything. Which, don't get me wrong, I'm only going to say this hopefully once. The new trilogy that came out, although entertaining to watch and everything, they were not necessary, and they decanonized a lot of the books and everything, which they're now calling them legends and whatnot. So these two guys are probably eventually going to have to find some way to tie all this in and everything. You know, that's my thought process on it and everything. And I kind of agree with what you're saying is like diluting it if you're going to keep going with the other series for it and everything. I mean, to me, at that point, it's going to be a cash cow, and don't do that because you're going to end up selling yourself out. You know, you got something real, you got a new universe right here that can really take off. And like you said, Brandon, just resuscitating the whole Star Wars series and everything. And I just want to see them make good content and do it on their own terms. You know, instead of having to tighten up on the deadlines of what Disney or, you know, what's her name, getting involved with it whatsoever, we won't speak it. So I don't want to get sued by Disney. so anyways.
Yeah. Imagine what Filoni and Favreau could have done if the original stuff was never decanonized. Imagine what they could do with Thrawn if Heir to the Empire was still in canon.
Mm-hmm.
That's where everybody wanted to go. True diehard Star Wars fans wanted to go with follow the path. The next book in the series after Return of the Jedi was Heir to the Empire. It happened a few years afterwards. The time period we're in now, basically the Mandalorian. Leia and Han's got kids. Luke is off doing his thing. You got Mara Jade going to start coming in. It would be in the series. And I think the route that Disney did, I think, kind of like hamstringed them a little bit.
Absolutely.
Now that you got people having to come up with brand new content and storylines that don't make sense or are not needed when you had all this source material. And the thing was, the next book in the series or the next story was Heir to the Empire, but the next author wrote the next book, used all the other source material to write his book, so everything stayed in continuity. We don't have that now. So
you've got 4 directors, and possibly 5, that you can put this entire IP into their hands. And you'd be good for the next 20, 30 years. You've got Filoni, you've got Favreau, you've got Taika Waititi, you've got Rick Famuyiwa, and then Robert Rodriguez directed a couple of episodes of The Mandalorian. That's a lot of content, a lot of bright minds, brilliant minds that you just hand this to and say, take this, run with it, make sure make sure you maintain some continuity in it. And tell the expanded stories outside of the Skywalker universe. There's so much material. There's so much that can be fleshed out. And I don't personally, much as I love Mark Hamill, the Skywalker story's done. Let's flesh out the rest of this and see where we can go with this. And I think those 4 or 5 people would be great to do that with. And I hope that's the path that Star Wars continues on as we expand this.
Yeah, it just sucks. So like you said, is the Skywalker story is done, but the way we were left with it ending was not the greatest.
Yeah.
I mean, you've got a character that everybody a few years older than you, Kevin, and several years younger than I am, grew up with, and we just felt like it just got trashed. There would have been a better way to end the Skywalker saga than what we've seen happen. So
The movies really, and so I can say this now, years after the fact. If you're going to tell the stories the way you told them, that needs to be a series, because you have more space in the series to tell this whole elongated story. I think the teeth of at least episode 7 and episode 9. I have no idea what episode 8 was. But episode 7 and 9, I think the teeth of that story ended up on the cutting room floor. There was a lot of extra stuff that maybe would have helped flesh that story out. It's Star Wars. People are going to sit through a 3-hour movie. They'll be fine. But give us that content. Let us see. Release them as unedited version, or release them as director's cuts or something. But give us that whole story. Flesh out what was really going on with Finn. Was he force sensitive? Are there more force sensitive people out there than just the ones that are, with the last name Skywalker or Palpatine? And I think they alluded to that at the end of episode 8 with the kid picking the broom up, without bending over and picking it up. And if that's the case, flesh that story out. At the end of it, it doesn't have to be a giant space battle. It could be a bunch of force sensitive people who didn't know they were force sensitive fighting that battle on the ground, which would have been awesome. That would have been spectacular. But instead, we get the really cool, or incorporated, you get the really cool space battle, but you also get the ground battle with all these newfound force sensitive kids that are, Jedis. You rebuild the Jedi Order, and that's how you end the story. But I feel like they put the movie in the wrong hands with J.J. Abrams. They definitely did with who was a kid that directed episode 8?
Johnson. Yeah.
On site, buddy. No, I'm not gonna harm him on site. Do not shadow ban me, YouTube. But yeah, there was a better way to tell those stories if you're going to tell them the way that they were. And I think a lot of that nuance and stuff ended up on the cutting room floor. I think the series would have been the way to go to tell that story. You get the story of Luke at the Jedi Academy and finding out that Kylo was more powerful than he possibly could have imagined. Instead of it being one sentence, it's a whole episode, or maybe 2. It would have been better for me, personally.
yeah, they could have went another way around it. So.
Mm-hmm. And you talk about launching Disney Plus. That's how you would have launched Disney Plus. Like, we're going to tell the story of the Jedi Academy, and then you go through that. You introduce Rey toward the end of that, and yeah, you think you would have had a line of subscribers out the door and back? Come on now.
Especially the quality of some of these series they're putting out.
Yeah. Disney, if you're listening, hire me. I'll show you how to make some money.
I think, if I'm not mistaken, even with the Star Wars series that they've been producing, but even on the Marvel series, they are doing, some of these Marvel series are doing better than the movies they're dropping out.
Yeah. Because you can watch a series at home in your pajamas. The one thing COVID told us is you can have a good time at home. See all this? Good time. All sorts of good time back here. At home.
Did you finally replenish after Beers Week?
I am in the process. I am in the process of replenishing. We didn't do as much damage as I thought we would have. I'm kind of disappointed in us. Maybe that's our old age or something. Or our old
up there in age, yeah.
We did not do nearly as much damage as I expected.
But we still had a hell of a time, though.
Yes, sir, we did. That we most certainly did.
So, anything else anybody wants to discuss today, or we gonna go ahead and wrap it up?
All I know is in 10 years when we're doing Beers Week, we're going to be drinking Spike Pepto-Bismol and Metamucil.
Wait, I shared a picture the other day. It was a shot. It was half Jaeger and half Pepto.
Yeah.
It's gonna be us in
We
a
call
few
that
years.
the morning after.
So, yeah, I think we're going to wrap it up for this episode. Yeah, like I said, make sure you give us a like, leave us a comment, smash the subscribe button, and always share this so we get the word of mouth out. I want to give a shout out to a special podcast. He's gonna pimp us out on his next episode. The Tales from the Crawl Space podcast. I work in pest control. It is a pest control humor themed podcast. They're going to give us a shout out, so I figured I'd give them a shout out on ours. So if you're in the pest control industry and listen to this show, check them out. You can find them on Spotify, most of your places where you can find the audio versions of podcasts. So, anything else you'd like to add, Tim?
Nope. That's my soapbox for the day.
Anything else from Kevin? The 28th. I think it's the 28th. We get more Star Wars content. Jedi Survivor drops. More Star Wars content to discuss. For those of you with PlayStations out there, the DLC for Horizon Forbidden West has come out, called The Burning Shores, and had a choked up moment there when that started, because the first voice you hear when you start that quest is the voice of our dearly departed Lance Reddick. Rest in power, my brother.
Also on the 28th of April, the selective theaters, they're going to be re-releasing Return of the Jedi, because I believe it's the 40th anniversary of it. And some theaters may even provide some collectible poster for it. So I'm thinking about maybe grabbing one of those.
Ooh.
Yeah, keep that in mind.
Cool. So, well, thank you for coming to listen. Thank you for stopping by. Like I said a few minutes ago, make sure you give us a like, leave us a comment, smash the subscribe button, and always share this. And as always, you guys got your shots?
Hold on.
Oh, you slacker. You've been sipping on it the whole episode.
I've been sipping on the whole time, so I'm going to do something different. I'm going to go with the Deep Eddy Cranberry. Red for the beers.
Remember, if you drink,
May
you drink with me.
Good stuff.
Yes, sir.